Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Coming up tonight, what's preventing a local hospital from providing more beds? Church leaders and funeral directors slam new restrictions. Plus, could the state of emergency be extended after all? Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, police on Grand Bahama say they are investigating an industrial accident at Bahamas Hot Mix where 3 people reportedly died. The incident happened late this afternoon. Officials describing the area as a dirt road heading toward the container port.
Sometime today around 4:15 p.m., the police received a report of an industrial accident located one of city service property. As a result, officers responded, and upon their arrival, they would have met 3 males who were said to be unresponsive at the time. This report revealed that these 3 males were doing some work in the floating tank at this location here where we are. And during such time, they all became unresponsive. An employee from an adjacent property came over to assist with the removal of the 3 lifeless bodies. EMS were called to the scene and pronounced the 3 male lifeless. An autopsy must be done to determine the exact cause of their death. So at this time, the police are still investigating this matter, and once we have more information, we'll come back to that. At this time, I can't give you no idea of the 3 males until an official idea has been done.
Can you just restate? Would you say, are they local residents? Are they foreign nationals? Can you say?
For my initial information, one is said to be a Bahamian national, a Dominican national, and an American national.
We'll bring you more information on Facebook and in a later newscast. In other news, a shortage of trained critical care nurses in the country is bringing the healthcare system to the brink as nearly 100 COVID-19 patients are hospitalized across the country. Doctors Hospital Health System feeling the shared burden of the current surge as it seeks to provide safe care for COVID and non-COVID patients. As 15 beds could become available to COVID patients at Doctors Hospital West. However, Doctors Hospital CEO and President Dr. Charles Digges says they just don't have the manpower.
Even in offering those beds to the government PMH, the reality on both sides, private and public sector, is you want to have the nurses who are themselves available, willing, and qualified to handle ventilated patients and unstable patients.
Doctors Hospital has a capacity of 10 beds for COVID patients at its main facility with 3 to 5 ventilated patients. At the Blake Road facility, it can currently accommodate 18 patients with 5 to 6 ventilated patients.
Do we have enough Bahamian nurses or people in the Bahamian healthcare system who are trained to work with ventilators in this pandemic?
No, we do not have currently the numbers of nurses and other human resource requirements that are being required to safely handle the surge in COVID. But again, I echo really importantly, to also continue to manage the ongoing and even increasing non-COVID issues.
To bridge the gap, Dr. Digges says they are looking at creative solutions to ramp up critical care training for nurses,
so that they are able to provide appropriate and safe care with the oversight of trained critical care nurses.
The Bahamas saw more than 600 new COVID-19 cases in the past 7 days.
We were at the brink, as perhaps was PMH, and sometimes threatened to be overwhelmed by this burden of having to manage serious or severe
As the country confirmed 75 new COVID-19 cases and an additional death, Minister of Health Renward Wells revealing today that no decision has been made on whether the government will stick with its original plan of not extending the state of emergency. Jasmine Brown reports.
Wells says the fact of the matter is the situation is fluid, and it has prompted the Minutes administration to think about whether it should or should not end that state of emergency.
This is not a static situation, it's a very dynamic situation. And in dynamic situations, that means decisions are made as we go along based on the initial conditions, the circumstances that we find ourselves in. So as we approach August 13th, the government will assess, reassess, look at our where we are, where we want to go economically, where we want to go nationally in our social sphere and the mental health of the Bahamian people. How do we see ourselves from a legal standpoint?
Wells, Attorney General Carl Bethel, and Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis had stated in recent weeks that the government would not extend the state of emergency on August 13th when it expires. However, Wells sang a slightly different tune outside Cabinet on Tuesday.
There is no decision, and I'm sure that the Prime Minister, well, I don't know whether he's going to speak specifically to that tomorrow night, but I think the Bahamian people ought to, as they always do, they wait for the Prime Minister to speak on issues, and but we have not made any decision. I mean, today's Cabinet, perhaps that those issues will come up.
The state of emergency allows ministers to implement a number of COVID mitigation measures, including curfews, lockdowns, the closure of certain businesses, social distancing, and mask wearing. On Friday, at a Ministry of Health press conference, Wells announced a number of new restrictions given the soaring COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths in the Bahamas. When asked on Friday whether health officials support the end of the state of emergency next month, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Pearl McMillan said the Emergency Operations Center would make an appropriate recommendation should it be tasked with that consideration. Wells says whatever decision is made will be in the best interest of the country.
We're assessing our national circumstance, and we're not going to do anything that is not going to continue to hold on to the benefits and gains that we have achieved in this country in our response to COVID as an administration.
Meantime, the AG has said that his office was preparing a bill to replace the state of emergency and still allow a legal framework to enforce a number of measures. However, there have been no recent updates on that legislation. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Church leaders speaking out against new restrictions that limit services to just 1 hour with 33% capacity. This as the Christian Council president asserts the state cannot dictate to the church. Kyle Joaquin has that.
While many church leaders were left disappointed by the new restrictions, others say they will just follow them. However, there is one thing they all have in common. They would all like to know the science behind it.
We have to be mutually involved. You know, it shouldn't be just, okay, here's an edict, just obey.
Bahamas Faith Ministries International Senior Pastor David Burrows asking for the evidence to support this latest round of restrictions, which includes limiting church services to 1 hour. While he says BFM will not fight the government on this, Burrows said there should have been consultation.
To date, I haven't heard the logic behind the 1 hour versus any other time. Of course, you want to have it as short as possible to keep people from congregating in as short a time as possible. But why 1 hour?
Mount Tabor Church Pastor Neil Ellis, who isn't too happy about church restrictions either, advised government against crossing the line.
I think the government just has to be very, very careful in its attempt to legislate or regularize the service times. I think that's where it becomes a little tricky, and that's where they can cross the line.
Ellis says to help cut the time down for the month of August, his church choir will not be singing. However, when it comes to keeping the services within an hour, he can't make that promise.
We're going to see how much closer we can come to that hour, but I am certainly not going to be hard-pressed in ensuring that I'm no more than 59 minutes. We're going to go there to worship our God and do what is required of us to do, to Him from whom all blessings come.
Churches must now operate at only 33% capacity, which for Evangelistic Temple means 450 people, according to Senior Associate Pastor Reverend Dave Cash. Still, he says they're disappointed.
Here at Evangelistic Temple, we have been pretty vigilant in ensuring that we follow all the protocols. So for us, it's disappointing because of that.
Cash says the church will adhere to restrictions. However, he agrees with the Christian Council president and wants to understand the logic behind such decisions.
As a church, we don't want to be seen as selfish and using this opportunity to stand up for our rights because, I think legally, I don't think that the state has that authority to restrict religion in any way. I don't think restricting the service to 1 hour is going to make that much of a difference, because if you're going to break the protocols, it doesn't matter how long the service is.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Meanwhile, tighter restrictions for weddings and funerals have thrown months of planning into a tailspin. Wedding planners are scrambling to adjust while funeral directors slammed the lack of consultation. Jillian Gray reports.
The fairy tale dream of brides walking down the aisle surrounded by their loved ones is slowly becoming a shattered reality, according to wedding planners who say they've now had to go into damage control because of the new restrictive measures.
Every girl dreams about a wedding day for many, many years. And so when situations like this happen, it's kind of disappointing, but we all understand what the government is trying to do.
First things first, everything is now all set on damage control. We are having the conversations. We're in steady communication with our clients. Above all, we just understand, especially from the last year, we have to adapt.
According to the new restrictions, weddings can only be held with a maximum of 30 guests, with the reception only allowed outdoors. That news comes just 1 week before Creme de la Creme CEO Andrew Forbes had 2 major events scheduled.
One of those events are on Saturday coming. One is on Sunday. And so when an announcement like this comes out the week before an event, where you have persons who are flying in from out of town, it definitely puts a couple in a panic.
It's a similar situation for wedding planner Tamara Delaney.
Not only are the brides and grooms having to now cut their guests, these are loved ones and family and friends wanting to celebrate this once-in-a-lifetime moment. But now we have to think about vendors, and now we have to think about amenities and properties and venues. So all of these things we've had to now just directly get into discussion, make it work some way, somehow.
Funerals face heavy restrictions as well, like no more than 30 people at a burial, no indoor funerals, and no repast.
We are concerned because our clients are being highly impacted by the measures. We understand the measures being taken by the government are in the best interest of this country, but at the same time, because we have not been consulted as professional caregivers as to the best way to have funeral service conducted, we are a bit annoyed.
The head of the Funeral Directors Association fears these measures could add to strain on the already overcome morgue as families wait for restrictions to be relaxed again.
That is highly likely that families will be in a holding pattern as to wait and see as to what's going to happen based on weekend funerals and also the restrictions for graveside services.
He says they are doing what they can to help alleviate the backlog. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Meanwhile, temperatures creeping up to 91 today. Greg Thompson has the latest.
Thanks, Christina. Welcome, everybody, for your Tuesday's first look at weather. Very, very warm day around the islands. Once again, temperatures into the 90s and those triple-digit heat indices keeping things uncomfortable outside. We're settling into the mid-80s, 84 outside our studios. Few clouds, light southeast winds at 5 knots, and your feels-like temperatures still in the upper 80s. Nothing to talk about across the islands. At ridge of high pressure in charge. Blue skies, hot temperatures, couple isolated showers, but it's going to be a very quiet night as things settle in. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on Our News, no plans to force the jab on healthcare workers, and later catching up with Team Bahamas at Tokyo 2020. Stay with us.
Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
While health officials have recommended that COVID vaccinations be mandatory for all healthcare workers, Minister of Health Renward Wells says the government has not decided to do that.
It is not the current position of the government of the Bahamas. This was a recommendation made by the health professionals in the Bahamas, in the Ministry of Health, to the government as a way for us to be able to help arrest and deal with the spread of COVID. But the government of the Bahamas has not made a decision, as have others around the globe, to move in the direction of a mandatory requirement for healthcare workers.
On Monday, Bahamas Nurses Union President Amancha Williams said making vaccines mandatory is not the right approach. Meantime, Wells also revealing that dozens of new doctors are expected to join the public healthcare system.
I'm going to be hiring another another almost 60 doctors to add to the 550 I got.
So when can we anticipate them coming in?
As a matter of fact, that's already happened. There's about 24 senior house officers who is going to be, well, it's more than 24. We're looking to hire, well, not hire, we're bringing on 30, and then we're going to be bringing on an additional 30 interns.
And with COVID cases continuing to soar, the Minnis administration implemented a number of measures aimed at stopping the spread of COVID-19. But National Security Minister Marvin Dame says clamping down on COVID infections will take much more than enforcing protocols.
We see this playing out in every country around the world. It's about personal responsibility, okay? The law can't enforce. If you're in your home having a party, you know, we have to take personal responsibility. If we go to church, if we go to an event, it's very important to wear your mask, all right? And two, it only speaks to, and when you look at hospitalization numbers around the world, those persons, the vast majority, in the 90 percentiles, who are being hospitalized are those persons who have not been vaccinated.
Dame says police and the COVID-19 enforcement unit will enforce the law, but he pleaded with residents to adhere to restrictions.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
When our news returns, getting to know Ginger Moxie, plus the latest from Tokyo 2020. Stay tuned.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is our news. Welcome back. Election season is not only heating up here in Nassau, but Grand Bahama as well. And in perhaps the most talked about seat of Pine Ridge, one woman is looking to take it all. In tonight's edition of Meet the Candidate, Kyle Joaquin speaks with Ginger Moxie.
Really, I'm just focused on how do I get to help people. I'm really passionate about that.
Meet Ginger Moxie, a mother and businesswoman, former president of the Grand Bahama Port Authority. Multitasking almost comes natural to her. She says she has a heart for people, which is why she's thrown her hat in the race as the PLP's candidate for Pine Ridge.
But when it comes to action, that is what I do. I'm about delivering results. I'm about making a difference. And so we've been on the ground from day one, making it happen.
I know what I am. Me and you take a picture before. Yeah. I know you found.
She spent her Saturday going door to door in the Pine Ridge community, listening to their concerns and cleaning up.
Every so often when we do our canvassing, we find out the needs of that community and we see it. And so we'd come back and do the cleanup exercise.
Let me see that shot. I never seen one of these before. Where you go, Rayma?
The Pine Ridge seat is a hotly contested one, with the FNM looking to hold on to it after Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine went rogue and is now seeking to be re-elected as an independent candidate after he says he turned down an offer by the PLP. But Moxie says she's not worried about the noise in the market.
Talk is cheap.
Her goal, to get the business community more involved with the people to help get Grand Bahama back to its glory days.
In order for me to get anything done in this community, I'll have to connect and collaborate with the regulators, the corporate community, everyone in the community to get things done. I truly believe in that, because without us coming together, nothing's going to happen.
With this edition of Meet the Candidate for Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
The swimming competition closing out for Team Bahamas in Tokyo. Marcellus Hall has more tonight from the Olympic Games.
Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Sports brought to you here in Tokyo by our friends over at J.S. Johnson. Well, Team Bahamas athletes continue to put their best foot forward. So far, they've only been doing it in the pool. Tonight, it was Isaac Bastian's turn to get back into the water for his second swim, coming in the 200-meter breaststroke. The swimming portion of the Olympic program coming to a close for Team Bahamas as Isaac Bastian took to the pool in the heats of the men's 200-meter breaststroke. Bastian, swimming in Heat 1 out of lane 5, started out well in the first 100 meters of the race. However, in the back half, unable to maintain pace as he slipped from being in the top 3 to 5th in a time of 2:17.40. Afterwards, he talked about the race.
It wasn't my best race. It kind of hurt, but I think my favorite part was before the race. The people I was in the heat with, we've seen each other before, and we're kind of friends, so there's just a lot of joking around in the waiting area, kind of loosening up a little bit. And even just walking back here, we're all cracking jokes, Everybody didn't really swim as fast as they wanted to, but everybody had a pretty good attitude, so I think other than the swimming, that was probably my favorite part.
Bastian adding that despite not having his best performances, he felt pretty good overall.
I didn't go any best times or anything like that, but I still think I had a good time and I made the most of the experience. I tried my best. That's all I could do. And unfortunately, it didn't work out the way I wanted, but that's how life goes sometimes. So we take it and move. But I think overall it was a really good experience for me.
With his Olympic experience now behind him, Bastian talked about what's ahead.
I'm going to take a little break. I haven't had some time to myself in a long time now, so I'm going to take some of that for a while at home with my family and then go back to school, get back to training hard, and finish out my collegiate career one more year, and then see what happens after that for the summer.
So as the swimming program comes to a close here for Team Bahamas, our attention now gets to shift to track and field. Track and field activities beginning on Friday. We'll see how that shifts around with the 100 meters, I think, first up on the agenda. We'll keep you posted on that situation as it gets even closer. Reporting from Tokyo, I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
And we'll be right here cheering on Team Bahamas. Still to come, how CIBC is celebrating its 100th banking anniversary. Stay tuned.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our news. Mostly sunny and pleasant conditions ahead. Greg is back in the Weather Center with the details.
Thanks again, Christina. Welcome back, everybody, for your second look at weather. Take a look at our satellite view across the region. Nothing happening out there. That ridge of high pressure remains in charge of our weather, keeping us under very dry conditions, blue skies, hot temperatures, a couple isolated showers popping up here and there, but all in all, that's going to be our trend for the next couple of days. Tropics remaining quiet. We have a couple of tropical waves, one to the south of Jamaica, another approaching the Leeward Islands, one in the central Atlantic, and the other one moving off of Africa. Nothing really happening with those systems as they continue towards west. If you plan on doing any beaching or boating in the northwest Bahamas tonight to tomorrow, southeast to southerly flow, 10 to 15 knots expected to be your winds, 2 to 4 foot seas, while in the central and southeast Bahamas, that caution flag continues for you guys down there. East to southeast winds, 15 to 20 knots, seas running 4 to 6 feet over the ocean. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Sunday. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night, everybody. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg. CIBC, First Caribbean International Bank, celebrating 100 years of banking in the region by planting 100 trees across 16 territories. Here in the Bahamas, yellow elder, lignum vitae, Persian lime, and cocoa plum trees were planted at the Bahamas Girl Guides Association campsite on Marshall Road. CIBC Managing Director Jackie Bend.
Corporate social responsibility is a major focus of our bank. And in addition to education, health, and community, our initiatives are also focused on supporting the sustainability and protection of our environment. Tree planting is acknowledged as one of the leading actions to slow climate change and has the ability to directly make a positive impact on our environment.
Bend says CIBC will also plant trees on Abaco and Grand Bahama to aid in the restoration of native trees that were destroyed by Hurricane Dorian. BGGA trainer Carolyn Young says she was happy that CIBC chose their campsite.
Your gift today will further ensure that hundreds of girls who enjoy our beautiful Camp Discovery will readily recognize the native trees in our reserve and elsewhere along our nature trail and the area in general. We expect that they will become great stewards of the environment, knowledgeable about the flora and fauna, and promoters of sustainable lifestyle.
Thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.